G'day, you're listening to the Virtual Staff Room, and this is episode 39, Scientific Curiosity. Hi, and thanks for joining us once again. Chris Betcher here. You're listening to the Virtual Staff Room podcast. Occasionally, I really plan these podcasts and I organise speakers to talk on particular topics, and other times it's just really open-ended and I just basically get on Twitter or Skype and say, who wants to have a chat? And that's exactly what I did for this episode. Just threw the doors open and said, who wants to come in? And had a couple of wonderful teachers jump onto the invitation today. We had Tim Kong from New Zealand, who was the first to put his hand up, so good on you, Tim. We also had Britt Gow from Victoria, who also jumped in and wanted to be part of it. John Pearce, a mate of mine, also from Victoria in Australia. And finally, Lee Zeitz, who is a professor of education in Iowa. So it's a pretty mixed bag. We've got primary teachers and university professors and everything in the middle for this one. The topic that emerged was science. John Pearce was a science teacher, primary school science teacher, and is now a primary science consultant. And Britt teaches science, and of course Tim has to teach science as part of what he does in the primary curriculum, and Lee, being the sort of person who teaches how to teach, also took an interest in it. And it was a really interesting discussion. It went into all sorts of other areas about the nature of teaching, and even if you're not actually that interested in science as such, I think there's a lot of really useful cross-curricular advice and ideas in this episode. So I hope you enjoy it. It's an interesting chat. I shall leave you with it. Here you go, with Tim and Britt and Lee and John. Oh, and me.
Hello?
That's better. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
gotcha. Excellent.
Yep.
I don't know what you did, but it worked.
No, I just restarted the stuff.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay, so let's bring... now, I don't know who you know here. Britt Gow. Do you know Britt?
No, I don't think so.
You do now.
Yes, hello.
Britt, Tim,
Britt.
Tim, Britt.
Hi, Tim.
How are
I've
you?
just added you to my contacts. Good.
Very nice.
Excellent. Now, let me also drag in here. Britt, you probably know John Pearce. Mr. Pearce.
How are you, sir?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad.
That's good. Tim, meet John, meet Tim.
How are you, Tim?
Hello, John.
And Britt. You know Britt? Probably.
Yeah, I do know Brett. We have.
Yeah, you've met?
Yep.
Okay.
At Slide to Learn.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
okay.
terrific.
There you go. All right. Now, also bring in this fella here. This is where it gets really interesting.
God.
There's a few others sitting on the sidelines as well that if they come back and say yes, I don't know what I'll do.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
G'day, mate.
Good day, mate.
How you doing, Lee?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good, good. I don't know who knows who here, but Lee, meet John and Tim and Britt.
How are you?
John and Tim. Hi there. How you doing?
Hello.
And where are you from?
I'll go first. I'm from Victoria in Australia.
Is this John?
Yep, this is John. Sorry, yep. Should have said the name. Yep.
Okay.
Not just from Victoria, but from the beachside suburbs of Victoria. I got to say.
Who is that? Is that what was in your video?
No, not quite. No, but I did get to stay with John a couple of weeks ago when we passed through, and it was lovely. Thank you very
It's
much.
even better today, sadly.
Nice.
Of course, it's -6 up here in Iowa, and that's Fahrenheit.
Serious?
Serious, -6.
Well, that's like -30 or something.
I know it is. I mean, we're talking. It's well past freezing up here.
Wow.
They say it's going to be hitting -12 tomorrow. Fahrenheit. Yeah.
You'll be starting to measure in kelvins next.
I'm going to have to. It's going to sound a lot better.
Yeah, cool. Tim, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, Lee. Hello, John. Hello, Britt. My name's Tim. I'm in Wellington, New Zealand, which currently right now is quite sunny and not too windy. But it's supposed to be blowing a gale later, so that'll be back to normal.
And
That's great.
while we're doing introductions, Britt.
Yes, hi. I'm from Hawkesdale, between Warrnambool and Hamilton in sunny southwest Victoria.
Oh, you actually live in Hawkesdale, do you?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you taught there, but like everyone else seems to, they drive up from Warrnambool or something.
No, well, we're on a farm, so we're about 12 k's from school, which is just a nice travelling distance.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. Lee, you didn't tell us where you are. Oh, yes, you did. Iowa. Yes, you did.
I'm sitting here in the middle of the cold in Cedar Falls, Iowa. I'm an associate professor of instructional technology at the University of Northern Iowa.
Nice. Hey, thanks for coming in, guys. This is occasionally, I plan these things and I actually organise who's going to speak and what the topic is, and other times I just pick a handful of interesting people and go, let's talk about whatever comes up. And this is one of those times.
Honored to be included.
No worries. I realise you may not be able to stay, so if you need to go, that's fine. No worries.
Okay.
Cool. John, you had a topic in mind, and I think, Tim, you jotted down a couple of ideas as well.
Yeah, well, given that I know of the work of Brit on her blog and everything else and that sort of stuff, and we share a sort of general interest in the area of science.
Because, Brit, you're a science teacher too, right?
I am science and maths in middle years and VC biology and environmental science.
What do you teach, Tim?
I'm a primary teacher in New Zealand, so sort of the whole lot, really.
Right.
Perfect.
What year group?
I teach year 7 and 8, so they're 12, 13.
Okay, so that's high school here.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, they're just, our year 8 is sort of the last year of primary, so they're just off to high school in year 9. So.
And then we go and feed them all out to institutions like Lee's.
That's the one. Send them away.
Well, I got to tell you, Tim, my hat's off to you. I mean, working with middle school students is definitely a challenge. That's the point where their brain stops working, but their body doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Now, before we get started, can I just say there's one thing I've never understood about schools, and that is why we have to be the accreditation body for universities. How come we structure our entire K-12 school system around figuring out what to accredit kids so they can get into a university somewhere? I've never understood why universities don't do the accreditation on the way in instead of schools doing it on the way out.
Well, an awful lot of them do it by interview and that sort of process. Now there's less and less cord given to, especially into teaching and that sort of stuff. They look at the results as a guide, but
yeah, it's good.
There's
Should
lots
be more
of other things.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is that, we keep talking about, change in the classroom and making sure that all this stuff is going to be a big difference. And what happens is that I talk to my teachers who are in the classroom and, the K-12 classroom, and I say, so what are you doing to change things? They say, well, frankly, what we're doing is we have to teach two different kinds of kids. The ones that aren't going to go to college, we can make them as creative as we want. But the ones that go to college, those are the ones that have to be able to fit into the mold that you guys use in the college. Now, the College of Education doesn't necessarily have that, but when you go into chemistry and all that sort of thing, what they have to do is they have to prepare them for the way in which that's going to be done. Otherwise, they do them a disservice. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a cart before the horse, or chicken and egg situation as to who's going to make the first change.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. Anyway, better not get me started on that hobby horse. John, you want to come back, flip back to your idea? Science.
Yeah. I've been associated with Science Teachers Association in Victoria for quite a few years, and been off to national conferences and that. And I've battled my head against the proverbial brick wall in terms of trying to get the whole thing of Web 2 and blogs and all that bits and pieces going. For yonks now, I've been up to meetings, and I've been on the executive for a little while, and trying to promote this notion, that as an association we should be putting it up and getting teachers involved and getting students involved and all that sort of stuff. And it still doesn't take, and it's perhaps not just science. I'm a member of a couple of other associations too, and the professional associations, apart from notably the history teachers in Victoria and a couple of others.
Very well organised, I've got to say.
Extremely, yes, yeah. They just don't, just hasn't taken. And, apart from a couple of luminaries in the science area as far as teaching, Andrew Dausch and Britt and Adrian Cam and a couple of others, again, it's just not taking. And yet these history, science and that sort of stuff should be the very essence of where all this technology could be used so brilliantly because
So,
it
Britt,
enables collaboration.
Britt, you're in the classroom every day and you're teaching science. Like, I don't know. What's your response?
You're just getting a bit mumbled there, Chris, but I'd agree with John. There is a lack of science teachers using Web 2 technology, and probably one of the reasons I started blogging was that I couldn't find a lot of good science educational stuff. There's plenty of content, but applying that in the classroom was somewhat lacking. So I've really enjoyed being part of that push with Web 2 tools. And I don't think the subject matter is important. I think it can't be any subject, and I've learnt that from Anne. You can use web tools in the classroom for,
Is it just because it's so
primary,
content-driven?
second, doesn't matter.
Is it just that, like, when you say to teachers, here's all this neat stuff you can do and here's all these neat tools you can use to do it, there's so much content that it becomes a problem trying to figure out how it fits in?
Content is a big part of the science course, but there are so many ways you can get that content across. And if you can excite the kids in the way that they present their work or the way they can learn more, then Web 2 tools are one of the best ways to do that. And, yeah, the variety of tools, I think, is what some teachers get overwhelmed with. And, they're used to doing presenting the content in their own way, and they find it difficult to transfer across to using Web 2 tools, perhaps.
I had to laugh.
Are we putting the tools in front of the content? If we say, well, we need to use the tools, we need to use the technology. When you guys teach your science, do you do it from the book, chapter 1, chapter 2, or do you use an inquiry approach where you pose a problem and have them figure it out and then reflect on it? How's that done?
I think in the primary area, which is where I usually come from, most teachers are more comfortable with just throwing out a bit of content. But the newer national curriculum in Australia, anyway, at least has put the whole notion of investigations and student-centred investigations right out back in front again where it should be. But even when presenting content and so forth, too much of it doesn't pay heed to the amazing amount of resources that are out there now, and there are lots of other different ways to work with it. Like if you go on YouTube now and that sort of stuff, there's just so many videos that could be used to stimulate and do the sorts of things. That content really is not the problem; it's the discussion around the content.
Right.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Is that if the process, the inquiry approach. I mean, what we need to do is I've been doing a lot of thinking and reading and work on this recently, and we need to take a look at this technology not as a the one-to-one computer or something, computer initiative or something. It's not a technology tool, but we need to look at it as the cognitive tool.
Yes,
where it simply
definitely
becomes part of the process that you use for problem solving.
Indeed,
and in some cases, it's a matter of going out and finding things and bringing them back in. I mean, the thing that I love to do, I love to have my students have computers sitting in their laps open while we're having discussions. Because the problem that we run into is if you have a discussion and you don't have any other kind of feedback or feed in, I guess. If you have a discussion, then what happens is the discussion is limited to what they should have read last night in preparation for this discussion and anything else that they have, which they didn't. And then they get into this thing of, well, I believe this and I believe that. What I want to see is that when we're having discussions, that the students are going out and say, well, over here in Wikipedia, it says that such and such is true. And then we can, well, do you think that's possible? And we get a lot of students who are, maybe even running a back channel where you've got people who are trying to make it into an active learning process rather than just trying to spit the stuff back up on a test.
And therein the process again has got preeminence. It's the argument that's more important than the content. You've still paid heed to the content. You've still got reference points for the content. Yeah. You can still argue but it's the actual having to put yourself out there and say, well, look, I reckon such and such, and justifying your position, and that's the nub of science. That's where science is in society.
And whether you're arguing about climate change or the extinction of a species is irrelevant. It's the quality of the arguments and the rational thinking that goes behind it that matters, isn't it?
And the stuff that you can back it up with.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, in New South Wales, where the state that I come from, we introduced a thing several years ago where computer skills were embedded right across the curriculum. And a lot of schools took the view that, okay, we're going to divide it up and, you know, the English teachers, well, you can do word processing because that fits really nicely with what you guys do. And, you know, the math teachers would do the spreadsheets and so on. Anyway, the school I happened to be at the time, it was decided that the science teachers would take on databases. And the number of science teachers had looked at me and went, how are we going to do that? What are we going to use a database for in science? And it's like, isn't science about collecting data and analysing it? Like, isn't that really all science is? It's like, it just astounded me that was such a disconnect that you would see, the manipulation of data as, but why would we do that in science?
Yeah, but that's also a product of the fact that really easy to access and work with. And I've used the word access there, haven't I? Easy to apply databases simply are not around.
Yeah.
You know, there were a couple early on, and they withered on the vine under the power of Microsoft and Access and that sort of stuff. And I still can't get my head around Access. So.
I got news for you, John. When you leave school and work with databases, they don't get simpler.
They don't use it. Yeah, I know they don't get simpler. But as an entree, as a way of thinking. It's just that the notion of working with something that is an easier tool to work with to build up a simple database so that you get the idea. Well, hang on, this is that just isn't covered, and databases drive everything we do now. Our credit cards, everything that it's got a database stuck in the back, and nobody knows about it. It's a bit like microwaves, we just turn the dial or press the buttons.
We better let Tim get a word in edgewise here. Tim, you work with year 7 and 8 kids. So you'd be butting up against a lot of this sort of business with attitudes to science and integration of technology into science, wouldn't you?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, one of the things at our school, we have a science fair each year for our year 7 and 8s, and that's a really good opportunity. It's like a 4 to 6 week project where they have to present and put something together, and then it gets judged, and the top ones go on to the regionals and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting. I mean, the inquiry model is what leads, and sort of an integrated approach is what leads most of our curriculum development across.
Well, I was just going to say that because you guys are in a unique position in New Zealand because your curriculum is, I think, probably one of the most advanced in the world, and it's pretty much entirely inquiry based, isn't it?
Yeah, and contextually based. I mean, individual schools can create what's necessary and relevant to their school, really, in terms of their needs. Yeah, which is fantastic. I mean, I've taught in 2 schools and very different needs, and so you create very different lessons and to meet those needs. I think one of the things we do here, and at the junior end of the school, they just call it wondering. That's not even inquiry, but it's fantastic to watch the junior kids, and they'll if they're doing, say the beach or stuff, they'll just do walks along the beach, and they'll be looking at shells, and then they're looking at the parts of the bodies and all that kind of stuff and colours, and I guess what I really enjoy about it is it's I look at my little 2-year-old and she's constantly wondering, and sometimes I think as a teacher you're gonna go through a system that beats all that out of you. Why are we doing that?
So Tim, what you're saying is you take your students out on the beach and you guys walk down the beach and look for things, and then you start using that as the basis for your science, or how is that implemented in your schools?
Well, we could, for example, say we did. Just thinking 2 years ago, we did a unit. My school's called Seatoon. We just called it Seatoon by the Sea, and literally it's a 2-minute walk to the beach. And we sort of implemented it rolled it out across the whole school. And at the junior end, it was just sort of real wondering and looking at parts of animals and parts of things. At the senior end, we were looking at change and effects on the environment, and we did like a beach cleanup, and we were looking at a little bit of the geology and looking at how the impact of plastics, and we kind of looking at allowing the kids to look at more of at a holistic level But the context for it was, we live by the sea. What are the effects in the sea, and how are we studying those things? So at some ends, it was like real specific, sort of, and I guess, looking at how to ask questions. Well, okay, well, we're seeing all this plastic. Well, what would that mean? And then so there's some of them took off into a more of a environmental aspect, and some of them were looking at sort of, well, we're looking at the coastlines and stuff and how that's changed, and that sort of led off into sort of a climate change thing and sort of the weather issues and things like that. And it allows them, I suppose, where I like my kids to leave and students as they head off to high school is to have that capacity still to wonder and still to ask a question, but in behind it have some real rigorous ways of examining those questions in terms of, well, how am I planning this, or where have I gone for my research, and what have I found out? Similar to what you've talked about in terms of having back channels, Lee, and all that kind of stuff. Sorry.
Well, what do you? How do you assess it? How do you? I mean, you go through it; it's all open ended, and now you get to the point where you have to assess it and identify how well they're doing this. I know, guys. I hate to bring reality back into this.
Oh, no, that's cool. No,
it really bothers me too.
We often do. One of our key things, I suppose, is pre-tests and post-tests, where you're just tracking what they've learned, and they're quite a simple way of doing it. In terms of snapshotting what they've learned over the unit, we don't have. Because it's at primary level, we don't have anything. In terms of the curriculum levels, we can, and I don't have it here in front of me, so I can't recite it all to you. But what you're saying is that they can, they can collect this sort of information, and they can organise this, or they can make statements based on this. So you can look at all those kinds of things. If you've seen and read our curriculum, the New Zealand one, as Chris said, it is quite advanced, and yet at the same time, it's quite it's
advanced in its simplicity. It's advanced because of what it doesn't force you to do.
Yeah, and so that question of assessment is always a difficult one, in the sense that it isn't a checkbox list. But it's important to recognise that what they're doing is relevant and has obviously learned something. Otherwise, we're not doing our jobs.
I think that's the secret with the science curriculum. Surely the secret's got to be to start with wonder and curiosity. To start with kids wanting to know about something, and then you develop a scientific process around that. I know I'm dreaming now, and as if it would actually ever work like that. But surely that's
just on the point of the assessment stuff and everything else. One of the joys of working with any of these, a blog or a wiki and that sort of stuff, the stuff is all date stamped. It provides you a record of. And if you go back and you're the administrator or that sort of stuff, and you can look in and you can actually see whether the students have changed their thinking. If they get into the habit of putting stuff into these repositories or whatever, whether it's that or it's the TypePad or something like that, or not TypePad, or Etherpad, or things like that, you can actually go back and track in on the thinking, which you can't do if they just present you with this whacking grade A3 piece of stuff, or a PowerPoint or something like that. So I'd argue that if students are using these sorts of tools, that you actually can look at a different level of assessment rather than simply the product at the end or the content. And
so you're looking at formative assessment as well as summative.
Yeah, and it's even better if you actually ask the students to involve themselves in the whole process too, so that then if you use the commentary function in some of these tools, or the discussion functions or whatever, and that sort of stuff, that the chat functions, then getting the kids to comment on each other becomes part of the assessment expectation, but it also feeds into a more critical examination of what's going on.
So, John, you're kind of proposing there that the blog then becomes the sort of the portfolio or the e-portfolio or the ongoing record of what actually is happening in that class?
Yeah. Blog,
so every kid has a blog, is what you kind of.
Or it's really just go back and you don't have to go to the WordPress ones. Just rip up a posterous one, and it, it can be last for a couple of weeks and you throw it away. That we start to look at some of these things as a little bit more ephemeral and to the point. You get up an Etherpad or something like that, and that becomes the thing for this particular discussion. We throw it out as a PDF and we've got a record of it if we want, but otherwise it just disappears into the ether. But we can look at, as I said, much more than just what's simply written in there, but how it's put in there and what sort of stuff, and then encourage this discussion that sits beside it. Or we use a group of tools. We set up a tiny chat or a today's meet or something like that alongside. Actually, I'm looking in here too. I'm conscious we're cutting Brit off an awful lot, but I'm looking on Brit's blog here, and her international energy debate on Illuminate posts sort of encompasses some of the sort of stuff that I'm trying to talk to there, I think. So maybe Brit could talk about that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, John, because it was a really exciting project that involved 4 schools, two in America and one in Tassie with Dion Scanlon and Hawkesdale, of course. And it was a huge project that involved groups of students working together, a few from each school, on specific sources of energy. They were in Year 8, my students, but they were working with Year 6, 7s and 8s all together. And it culminated in an Illuminate meeting in which students from each energy group represented their team and put forth a case for their different energy source, whether it was oil or geothermal or wind or solar, whatever. And many had not used Illuminate before, but the confidence with which they spoke and the comments in the chat function from students who I probably wouldn't have picked up on that they'd done as much research as they had were just fantastic. I was really blown away. So even though it seemed to drag on and it seemed like some of the students were wasting a bit of time, the end products and the communication between students was fantastic. So the content really took a back, that they did learn a lot about their specific energy source, but they were able to debate about other sources of energy as well. So I was really pleased with the wikis that they produced, and that was an ongoing record of their research, as well as the communication between, which some of them picked up and they started Skyping each other and emailing each other. So, that was a good success for a Year 8 class.
So they started to take charge of the project and the tools and that sort of stuff, and use them in spite of you rather than with you, sort of thing.
They had to, really, because it was such a big project involving so many students that we could monitor the wiki chats and the voice threads that they put up. And of course, we were monitoring the Illuminate session that was moderated by myself and some senior students at Hawkesdale. But for them to get all the information they needed, they had to communicate between themselves, sort of offline and outside our control, which they did very responsibly. So I was really pleased with that.
Looks like a great project.
How long was that project?
It was probably 5 weeks from.
Wow.
It was a long time to spend on energy, but the other skills and the other resources they used made up for that time that we used in class.
Well, it's that whole thing about whether you want to make it so it's a mile wide and an inch deep, or you want to make it a mile deep and who knows how wide, where you really get into the depth of it and you turn it into something where you're building skills that'll generate over into other activities.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it at the end of the year. I think by the end of the year, I was confident that they'd developed enough of those skills to use in the project. But you really need to get to know your kids and what they're capable of before you can expect them to succeed in that kind of inquiry-driven project.
So, Britt, something I see a lot of is, you occasionally come up with a really good, interesting idea for a project and an interesting use of the tools to sort of help achieve those goals. What was the quality of the scientific thinking like?
Well, because we weren't doing a experiment in class, it was research on different types of renewable energy, although we did incorporate some, make your own torch and that kind of thing from time to time. It was more a research project than true experimental process.
Using I suppose you'd call it appropriate or high-level scientific language, and were they using, appropriate scientific thinking? Was the scientific thinking evident in what they were doing here, as well as obviously the motivation and the enjoyment of doing the project?
I think there was varying levels of scientific thinking going on, as in any class. There's going to be a great variety, and there were some students that excelled, but the students that with low literacy skills or they were able to find out things in different ways. So they were able to use video and rather than...
Because I think that's going to be that in terms of getting the message about the use of educational technology across to the greater teaching profession, I think the convincing argument that they're going to need to see always across every discipline, not just science, is, that was good and it motivated the kids and they were engaged and all of that, but did they actually engage with the content and the ideas and the type of thinking that was relevant to my content area? And that's always the thing. And teachers will say to me, the kids enjoyed blogging, but their writing didn't improve. I think there's probably a whole bunch of reasons why that happens that has nothing to do with,
Well, that's just like when they used to say, since I've got a word processor, it must mean my writing.
Handwriting.
And the whole thing is, it like you said, it's all a matter as to what kind of feedback they get, how it gets responded to. I mean, I love the story where they talk about a fifth grade girl. She comes walking into the teacher and hands her, 3:00 and hands her a paper. She says, "What's that?" She said, "Well, I'm sorry it's late, but this is my paper." Well, you're supposed to put all these things up on the blog. And the girl kind of looks at her and squints and says, "Oh, well, then it's going to be a couple days late." And she said, "How come?" And she said, "Well, it's not good enough to go on my blog." And that's the whole thing, as to whether they're in a situation where their partners and their classmates are willing to give them positive feedback or constructive feedback, and it becomes a collaborative means of learning.
Brooke, I'm interested. Did any of the students come up with something in amongst the stuff that they discovered that actually was better than the stuff that you thought of?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know everything about the 12 different forms of energy they studied, and they were able to, as a VC environmental science teacher, I know to some degree, but they were able to come up with local examples and they talked about the advantages and the disadvantages. They came up with some really interesting information, some great pictures of the wind turbines up on the roofs in the buildings in Tasmania, which my kids were fascinated by because we've got a wind farm going up in paddocks, close to the school.
This is year 8, isn't it?
Year 8s, yep.
Okay.
Yep. And younger for Dion Scanlon's class. So, I think what Lee pointed out, it doesn't negate your responsibility as a teacher just by putting them on computers. You still have to know your students and know what they need to know and how they're going to get there. You can't just let them loose and expect them to find their way. They need guidance and they need feedback, I think, which is really easy to do on blogs and wikis, and you can give it and they can get it instantly, even if they're working outside school hours.
It's interesting. I had a conversation this morning before we recorded this with Linda Yolis and Kathleen Morris, who do a lot of blogging with their kids and talking about this idea of, has it improved the literacy of what the kids are writing and their ability to construct an argument. So that'll be a separate podcast. But it's kind of interesting for me looking at these two conversations back to back because it's the same argument running. It's the same thread running through this.
Yeah, one of the things that... What reason I asked that question was that it if the students are beginning to identify content, then for teachers who are content averse, because and this is one of the things that a lot of primary school teachers will say, we don't teach the science because we don't understand the content, the background. You've got to provide us with that. And when we do, having done a fair bit of this sort of stuff, when you do provide them with the content, they go, oh, well, now we're going to have an experiment, an investigation to do. So you give them that, and then it all just becomes too hard because there's too much stuff to deal with. But if you could,
we want
if
it
you
to be
could
prescriptive, but not that prescriptive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you can circumvent it, and this is another one of the things that I'm trying to push with teachers and the Science Teachers Association is, the content, if that can be freed up with the students actually identifying and working with the content and providing it, then it leaves you as the teacher back in your role, your proper role of moderating and questioning content, questioning the way that the students have found the content, questioning the way that they interpret it and argue for and against it and so forth. And that's the part. That's the bit of teaching. Teaching is around how it's dealt with and that, not providing it, not trying to entertain and things like that.
I've never been a fan of the way high schools divide things up into little boxes called subjects and, and segregate the curriculum. But I have to say that when you're taught science by a teacher who's actually passionate about science, as opposed to maybe a primary school teacher who teaches science because it's in their syllabus and they have to, but they're not really that interested in it themselves, there's a world of difference between.
But you know what it is? It doesn't have to do with the topic area. What it has to do with is it has to do with the pedagogy, the way in which people are teaching. And how do you learn to teach? You learn to teach by being a student in that situation.
Exactly.
But what always happens, as an individual though, like if you've got a passion for the music and the performing arts and you're not at all interested in science, then you're obviously going to teach those things slightly differently. I don't think you can avoid it.
Oh, I agree, but I'm still saying that when we take a look at process, though, obviously, if there's something that, if you're passionate about science, there's so many things about science that that the typical Joe wouldn't know. And you're able to make all those connections. A superb social studies teacher is somebody who can tell you about European history like a soap opera, as to how these things are working together. And but a lot of it has to do with, as I said, on how teachers learn to teach. And one of the things I'm doing right now is in my class, I've got a class which is it's the second class they take in an ed tech minor here at University of Northern Iowa. And what I'm doing here is I'm completely redoing the class, so we're not talking about it. We're actually learning about and doing project-based learning and that sort of thing. And I don't think people can actually teach using that method unless they've done it, unless they've been the student. So that, because they always say that if you get stuck and you don't know how to teach, you're always going to go back to the way you were taught.
Now, speaking of that, do you find, this is an interesting question because you deal with pre-service teachers, that the people coming through the system, coming out of school and saying, I want to be a teacher, so they go through university to learn to be a teacher, is there a lot of preconception challenging going on where you're having to get people to unlearn what they think teaching is about because they've been in a school for 18 years and they've seen it?
Oh, absolutely. We have, we are in Iowa. Yeah, I have to tell you, in Iowa we have 3 million people and 15 million pigs, and so it's we actually have five pigs for every person.
New Zealand can beat you with sheep.
Coming here,
I bet you can. But a lot of rural areas. Many of our kids come from very small towns, and so in most cases, we're not that heavily integrated either. And so we find kids that come in and they think, because when we have them create units and things like that, we ask them to address the diversity issues. What is your class going to be like? What are the special needs that the students have? And they'll sit there and point blank say, oh, well, they're all going to be white and there aren't going to be any special needs. Well, this is something that we do have to bring out, that yes, there's plenty of special needs, things are integrating. So from that level, I think that what happens is if you start, and many of them just want to go back to their hometown and teach, and there's so many aspects of the world, the global concept that they need to get involved with. And I think more and more they are, because they're getting more access to it through the use of technology and through, just everything that they deal with on a daily basis. When it comes to, and then we end up with, I hate to say it, but it seems like the history teachers are the worst. And that is, when we have them create their own fantasy classroom, and that isn't quite as bad anymore. But the technology in this fantasy classroom was a lectern and an overhead.
I won't comment.
Is that what you use?
No. But I work with many history teachers.
And it's all about their stories and things like that. But it isn't something where they are having the students experience, and much like what you were talking about, Brittany. It was the whole idea of going out, exploring, and having the excitement of making the discoveries and then trying to make sense out of them.
We had an interesting project this year with some pre-service teachers from Ballarat do virtual teaching. So they came to the school for 2 weeks, and then they were off campus for a week, and they Skyped in and did Illuminate sessions with our students. And it was a great success. They learnt so much about Web 2 tools, but especially about that virtual teaching world, that it really put them in good stead for their teaching, which they start this year.
Well, I know we have one of the things, I use Skype a lot, much like what we're doing right now. And I'll bring people in from all over the world. And in fact, one time, there's some guy down in Australia that we brought in for a conference I was doing. I don't know. Do you remember what his name was? It'll come to me, Chris. Yeah. Anyway, but we bring people in from all over the world. And what I find is that the students just find that it's something they never even considered. Now, the irony of this is that they'll Skype with their friends all the time. One of the things that we do is I'm taking 8 practicing teachers over to the Flat Classroom Project conference in Beijing next month. And we were able to bring Julie Lindsay and Vicki Davis in through using Skype. And, it was one of these things where they got to, when they found out about Vicki and Julie, these were their heroes. These were teachers who were doing so much and changing education so much. Here they had a chance to talk to them face to face.
Fantastic.
Can I just jump in and say, I think
of course,
one thing that we should be telling young teachers, and I say this as someone who did it myself, is after you finish university, go away and do some living.
Bravo. Yes.
And come back. I came back to teaching at 30, and 31, and it was an odd thing to sit back in a teacher's college full of 21-year-olds and look around and go, wait a second, you're going to teach? What do you know? So, I don't know, for what it's worth. There's some fantastic teachers that come out at that age, but I know I'm a better teacher because I spent 10 years traveling the world and being a roadie and things. So,
you were a roadie for a band?
I was a video production roadie, for Underworld, the Chemical Brothers, 9 Inch Nails, and a few others. So.
Really? Wow.
Ah, terrific.
It's my thing.
Cool. No, I totally agree with you. I think the best teachers I've ever known have been ones who left teaching, did something else and came back.
Yeah.
Or did something first and then started later.
Or they went out and they taught someplace else in the world.
And I always got to be careful when I say that, because there are some excellent teachers who, knew from day one they wanted to be a teacher, and they went to teach college, and they're amazing. But they're the exception rather than the rule in my experience. I'll probably get emails about that.
No, I think you covered yourself pretty well with that one.
I came to teaching as a mature agent student too. I did my science degree straight out of uni, and then spent 10 years travelling and working and different things, had children, and teaching is now my passion. Now, I've done a lot of other things, and I know it's a good job.
Yep.
I wouldn't say that I was mature, but no.
I might as well give my backstory then too, because I'm one of those who didn't really know what to do once finished year 12. Actually, I failed year 12, so then I had to go and do something else, and found out that I failed that one too. So then I went back to do year 12 again, and then couldn't figure out what I was going to do with my life, except at that particular time they actually paid you to become to train as a teacher. So that sounded too good. So for all the right reasons, I became a teacher.
And apparently it took, huh?
Nothing else to do, and they'll pay you to do it.
So there's the secret. If you fail at everything else, you can be a teacher.
Exactly.
Somehow I don't like that. I know I wanted to be a teacher since I was knee high to a Coke bottle, and it was one of these things where I got into being a high school. My dad convinced me I should be a lawyer, and I failed for the first 2 years of my undergraduate degrees. And got back into teaching, and it's just been my passion ever since. Although I had the opportunity to be a visiting professor down in Malaysia for a year. And one of the things that we have here at the University of Northern Iowa is the students can do their student teaching elsewhere. They don't have to do it in Iowa. I think we've got opportunities in almost all 50 states and even internationally. And I keep telling the students, leave, don't do it here. Go out and get some more experience and come on back and teach if you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not such bad advice, really.
No.
I've actually, at the school I used to work at, we had a number of students from states. I think actually somebody might have come from, I think Reagan, one of my students who was in my room came from Iowa.
Really?
Seems to ring a bell. Yeah. And had a fabulous time, and it was great because it was not only the teaching experience and looking at a system in a different way and all of that sort of stuff, but it was also the cultural, social experience that she had as well, and took back and everything, and that was great fun, both ways.
Yeah, we even sent some of them down to Texas, and they have a completely different experience down there.
Did they come back?
Believe it or not, they pay twice as much down there as to what we pay here.
Oh.
A starting teacher here in Iowa begins at $27,000, and down there they were starting at $43,000.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
That's wow, 27,000.
How much do you guys make?
That's what
down
you
there?
do to attract good people.
Exactly.
Are you guys starting higher or lower down there?
Higher. Well, I would think.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a while since I've started.
Yeah, I think it was about 40 in Victoria.
Yeah.
A bit more, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And given parity and everything else, that's
Yeah, I think it was 30-something when I
Significant
started,
difference.
but that was 20-something years ago. So I don't know.
My first job, I was making $625 a month.
And you
And
probably
I
thought
was
it
only
was
making-
great.
I was making $620. It was a private school, and I was making $625 because instead of $575 because I was doing morning and afternoon yard duty too. Boy, I remember the days, and boy, we like.
Back in the day, I used to wear an onion on my belt.
This is one of the reasons I left being a roadie, because I didn't want to be the 50-year-old who told stories about the good old days. But
Back when I hung out with the dead.
We've been participating in the Teachers Blogging Challenge over the past couple of weeks, and one of the interesting About Me pages had to me when I was a Year 7 student and then me now. I thought that was a nice way to get kids involved in, yes, your teacher was a student once too, and can you pick them in the class photo?
Be stealing that.
Yeah,
What do you
right.
think?
Oh, that's a good idea.
I've just started doing the teacher challenge one.
Oh, good, Tim. Yeah, it's been fun. I've really enjoyed so far.
And
Today's
what is that?
the EduBloggers have supported Teachers Blogging Challenge, and twice a week they've got activities for both beginners and advanced bloggers.
I've missed that.
It's all been happening. I think Google Teachers Blogging Challenge, kickstart your blog.
That John Pierce character got me too involved in doing this photo a day business.
Oh, yeah, the 365
Brit does that already. Brit,
Yeah.
it's got the blue wren on the go today. One of those impossible shots to get.
Yeah, they're just too far away, those wrens. Today's blogging challenge was about avatars and the different.
Is that why you have that on your blog?
Yep.
You
Yep.
got that whole posting there?
Yep, that's my blogging challenge for today. 10 different ways to create an avatar.
It's better than Botox avatars.
Everybody's skinny in Second Life.
Okay, well, look at that blogging challenge. It sounds like fun.
Yeah, I'm glad it's in the holidays because I don't think I could keep up during school time.
All right, good ideas, though. Good ideas. Anyway, guys, well, we're kind of, would you believe, we've been going for 50 minutes or so it's not bad for an impromptu chat.
Oh,
By the way,
always
what
fun,
time
Chris.
is it down there?
It's 12:30 in the afternoon where I am.
Oh, I've got 7:38 here at night.
And it would probably be about 2:30 where you are, Tim, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
There you go.
And Tim, are you on holidays for another couple of weeks?
Another couple of weeks. Yeah, I'm in my classroom at the moment. I've had to move rooms this year, so I've sort of surrounded by boxes.
Yes. Remember it well.
Well, it's quite good, actually. You sort of get to throw out all that stuff that's just been sitting in boxes, so it's been quite useful for me. But yeah, we're back on about Feb 1st, I think, and then the first day back of school the first day the students are here is Feb 4th, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had to move offices, and then God, you're right. You get rid of a lot of junk, don't you?
Catharsis.
I pick up
Something
my
I wanted
computer
to
and
People about moving your resources to the clouds. It's a slow process. And how do people go about sort of getting that messy desk in an organised way up into the clouds?
You mean like into Google Docs and that sort of thing, or what?
Well, yeah, Google Docs. I don't know whether people use Evernote or Dropbox or what people are using so that they can access it.
Yeah, I'm a big Dropbox fan. I love Dropbox. I try and love Evernote. I haven't quite
Evernote's
fallen
wonderful.
in love with Evernote yet. I like it. I use it, but it's okay. It's good.
Judy O'Connell came on this morning and reminded people about Sugar Sync. Sugar Sync's got 5 gigs as opposed to Dropbox with the 2 plus whatever you can winkle out of people by subscribing them up.
And what I didn't realise the other day, and I got it from Judy's blog, was there's a page on the Dropbox website you can go to which asks you to simply confirm that you own a .edu email address.
Yes, yeah.
And so long as you can confirm that and reply to the confirmation, they will double all of the extra space that's given. So I've got, I think, 7.5 gig or something at the moment.
Oh my gosh!
And if you do every little thing you can do to get the extra space, you can apparently get it up to 19 gig for free.
Wow!
So
Got to say you're sold though. Sell out all your friends. It's a bit like Tupperware.
Yeah, right.
that's all right. I might put a link to that in the blog.
That is like Tupperware.
No. Sign up with my Dropbox thing and I'll
yeah,
space.
yeah.
But they get space
Right.
too, so it's win-win.
Yeah.
Well, you know what you really need to do is you need to put one of those little thermometers going up the left-hand side to see if they can get you up to 16 gigs or 19 gigs.
I like that idea. And it even lets you track it. You go to the website and you can track who you've sent invitations to, who's responded, who's actually signed up. And I was distressed to find out that I sent one to my partner and she didn't sign up for it. She signed up for it with someone else. Cause of much consternation in the household. Anyway, so the cloud, it's interesting. I don't know about you. I got so much stuff that cloud backup. I pay for an account with what are they called? Carbonite, which is an online backup thing, and you get unlimited backup space for that. But like I've currently got about 36 gig waiting to back up.
Okay, I'm going to ask something stupid. Why do you need to get it up on the cloud?
The 3-2-1 backup rule, mate. 3 copies on 2 different mediums, at least one off-site.
Okay, so it's not a matter of you need to access it, on a daily basis.
Nah.
It's merely a place where you can put it to store it.
For me, it's the Carbonite stuff is all my photos and stuff that if my computer died, I just wouldn't want to lose all that stuff. So photos, music, videos, all that stuff goes into the cloud where I know that someone else is looking after the backup of it.
Mm-hmm.
We are probably just about out of time. I think I said that before. We should wrap it up.
Well, thanks for inviting me. This is great.
No worries. Thanks for dropping in, guys. I really appreciate it. We'll just quick run through, Lee. Where can we find you on the web?
Sure, I'm at Dr. Z Reflects. That's REFLECTS.com.
Okay, Dr. Z Reflects. Z or Z, depending on where in the world.
Yeah, Dr. Z. Or Doctor Who. I don't know. It's one or the other.
Cool. We'll put it in the show notes anyway. I'll get you to send me a text or a link or an email or whatever communication method we can decide upon, just with some contact details, and I'll stick it in the blog. John, where can we find you?
johnp.wordpress.com.
Excellent. And also doing a little bit of consultancy these days with your company, Salty Solutions. I'll give you the free plug, even if you won't.
With Salty, yeah, with good old Salty, yep, all over the place, all over the shop, literally.
There you go. And I should just say, John, am I allowed to tell what you're doing now? Your new little venture?
Oh, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
John's actually just taken over as the community liaison officer, for want of a better term, for Global Teacher and Edublogs. Or mainly Global Teacher, isn't it?
Global Student, Global Teacher, yeah.
Global Student, Global Teacher.
Yes.
Which Britt is a big fan of.
Yeah, fabulous,
Definitely.
John. Oh, that's great to know.
So John is another Sue Waters, basically.
I defer to Sue and refer to her constantly now. Yeah, she's on speed dial in Skype.
So there you go.
Wow.
If anyone listening to this uses Global Teacher or Global Student and you need some help and assistance, John's the guy you'll be dealing with. So thanks, John. Tim,
Chris.
Tim, what about you?
Yep, my blog, such as it stumbles into creation with the Teach Challenge, is continue, or one word, .edublogs.org.
Oh, I like that.
It's in my. Basically, the names comes from a poem that was. I was reading a magazine, an obituary about Murray Clay, who's a rather famous reading recovery person.
Murray Clay, yes. I did reading recovery training too.
Yeah, said a lot. And this was, I think, my first year of teaching, and I reading a poem, and it's called Continue, and then I found out sort of a week later that she was actually my second cousin.
Wow.
Which was once removed or something, so that's why the name came about. But it's, I think as I just said there, I've just sort of started writing my blog in a bit more seriousness, one of those resolution things.
Cool.
But yeah, there it is.
All right. Well, it's good to connect. And finally, Britt.
Yeah, I'm at Britt Gow at globalteacher.org.au, and my Twitter address is just Britt Gow with 2 T's. Thanks, Chris, John, Lee, Tim, for the conversation today. It's been fabulous.
It has been good. Yeah, it's been really interesting. And
indeed.
as usual, flip-flopped around and covered a lot of ground, but it's all been good. No worries. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. It's been excellent.
Cheers. Thank you.
Ciao. You can find the show notes for this episode and every other episode over at virtualstaffroom.net, which is a blog to support this podcast that dates all the way back to 2006. You'll find every episode, every show note all there. We also have a Facebook presence these days, and you can find us on Facebook just by searching for the Virtual Staff Room Podcast. We'll see you over there. You've been listening to the Virtual Staff Room. Thanks so much. My name's Chris Betcher. Catch you next time.